In this video, she bought an abandoned 1970s stone mansion, then discovered a secret no one dared to open. Let's start the video.
When Mira bought the abandoned stone mansion, most people in the nearby village were surprised. The house stood alone on a high hill, quiet and heavy, as if time had forgotten it. It was built in the early 1970s with thick stone walls and wide steps leading to a tall wooden door. No one had lived there for many years. Birds rested on the roof, and wild plants grew freely around the yard. To others, the mansion looked cold and lifeless. To Mira, it felt calm and full of hidden stories. Mira was a simple woman who loved old places. She believed houses carried memories, even when people left. She was not searching for luxury or fame. She wanted peace and a place where she could start a new chapter of her life. When she first saw the mansion, something inside her felt steady. The silence did not scare her. It welcomed her. The villagers warned her gently. They said the house was strange. Some said it was unlucky. Others said it was better left alone. Mira listened but did not argue. She thanked them and smiled. Fear without reason never guided her choices. She believed understanding came from facing things, not avoiding them. On her first day, Mira unlocked the heavy door and stepped inside. Dust floated in the air, glowing softly in the light coming through the tall windows. The floor was cold stone, smooth but cracked in some places. The air smelled old, like paper and wood. She walked slowly, touching the walls, feeling their strength. The mansion was large but not confusing. Every room felt planned, as if someone once cared deeply about this place. The living room had a wide fireplace made of stone. Above it hung an empty wooden frame where a picture once rested. The furniture was gone, but marks on the floor showed where tables and chairs had stood. A broken clock hung on one wall, frozen at the same hour. Mira wondered what had happened at that moment, and why time seemed to stop there. She moved through the house carefully, opening each door. There were bedrooms upstairs, all empty, with windows facing the valley below. From there, she could see the village, small and quiet. The view made her feel less alone. She imagined waking up every morning to that peaceful sight. As she explored the long hallway on the main floor, she noticed something unusual. One door at the end looked different from the others. It was darker and older, yet wooden bars were fixed across it. The bars were not part of the original design. They looked newer, placed there many years after the mansion was built. The door handle was worn, as if many hands had touched it before it was sealed. Mira stood still, staring at the door. A strange feeling passed through her, not fear, but curiosity mixed with respect. She did not touch it. Instead, she stepped back and continued her work. She reminded herself that it was her first day. There was time for everything. That night, Mira slept in one of the upstairs rooms on a simple mattress. The wind moved softly outside, brushing against the stone walls. The mansion made quiet sounds, like deep breaths. She did not feel unsafe. Still, she woke once in the night, sensing something she could not explain. The feeling faded, and she fell asleep again. The next morning, she cleaned the kitchen. Old shelves lined the walls, and faded tiles showed patterns from another time. As she worked, she found an old notebook hidden in a drawer. The pages were yellow and fragile. Inside were simple notes about repairs, weather, and daily life. Names were written there, but none explained why the house was left behind. Later that day, Mira walked down to the village to buy supplies. The shopkeeper, an older man named Rafi, looked at her carefully. He asked if she was staying in the stone mansion. When she said yes, he nodded slowly. His eyes showed concern, but he did not push her away. Rafi warned her again, kindly this time. He told her to be careful and to avoid certain parts of the house. When she asked which parts, he hesitated. He said some doors were better left closed. Mira thanked him but did not promise anything. She felt there was more behind his words, something unspoken. When she returned to the mansion that evening, her thoughts returned to the sealed door. She walked down the hallway again and stood before it. The light from the window fell across the wooden bars, showing small marks and scratches. Someone had worked hard to keep this door shut. Mira placed her hand on the cold stone wall beside it. She did not open the door. Instead, she made a quiet decision. She would learn the truth of this house, slowly and carefully. The mansion had waited many years. It could wait a little longer. As the sun set behind the hill, the stone mansion stood silent, holding its secret close. Mira lit a lamp and walked away from the door, unaware that her choice to stay had already begun to change everything. The next morning, Mira woke to soft sunlight spilling through the tall windows of her new home. The birds sang quietly outside, and the wind moved gently through the trees surrounding the mansion. She felt a strange calm, as if the house itself was welcoming her to explore more. After a simple breakfast, she decided to continue cleaning and arranging the rooms, making the large, empty mansion feel more like home. She started with the main living area. Dust lay thick on the floor, and the stone fireplace had not been touched for decades. As she wiped and swept, Mira discovered small details that made her smile. A carved heart on a chair leg, a faint drawing etched into the windowsill, a tiny note tucked into the corner of a cupboard. Someone had lived here and cared, long ago. The thought made the mansion feel warmer. After several hours of work, Mira decided to examine the upstairs bedrooms. She walked slowly, opening each door, feeling the cool stone under her feet. In one room, she found an old wardrobe. Its doors were stiff but opened with a soft creak. Inside, there were folded clothes yellowed with age and a pair of leather shoes that looked almost untouched. Mira wondered about the people who had worn them and what had happened to them. She carefully left the items in place, feeling that they belonged in the room. As the day moved forward, Mira could not stop thinking about the sealed door at the end of the hallway. It had stayed in her mind since the first day she saw it. The wooden bars, newer than the rest of the house, seemed deliberate, as if someone had wanted to make sure no one entered. Mira paced slowly in the hallway, her eyes drawn again and again to that mysterious door. Later, she went into the kitchen to rest and drink some water. The old tiles were cracked and worn, but the patterns were still visible. She noticed small notes stuck under the counter, written in neat handwriting. They contained simple reminders about cooking, cleaning, and small daily chores. The handwriting was careful, kind, almost like someone had lived here with love for every detail. Mira carefully placed the notes in a box for safekeeping. The more Mira explored, the more she understood that the house had been left not in anger or fear, but out of necessity. The house was large and beautiful, with rooms built for comfort and care. Yet someone had left suddenly, leaving behind belongings, notes, and memories. The mystery of the sealed door made her curious, but she felt she had to learn the story slowly. That evening, Mira decided to take a walk outside. The yard was overgrown with grass and vines, but she liked it that way. Nature had made the mansion feel alive, not empty. She followed a path behind the house and found a small garden that had long been forgotten. Broken pots, dried flowers, and twisted stems filled the space. Mira imagined planting new flowers here, restoring the garden little by little. She also thought about the people who had once cared for this place, and she wondered if they had children, friends, or neighbors who remembered them. When she returned to the mansion, she found Rafi, the shopkeeper from the village, waiting at the gate. He greeted her with a warm smile, but his eyes were still serious. He asked how the house felt to her. Mira spoke honestly, describing the calm, the quiet, and the small surprises she had discovered. Rafi nodded, as if he had expected her answer. Then he leaned closer and spoke softly. He told her stories that the villagers had shared for years. They were not scary stories, but they were cautionary. He mentioned the mansion's history, how the family who built it had been clever and careful, and how something important had been hidden in the house long ago. Rafi did not say exactly what it was, only that it was wise to respect the secrets of the house. Mira listened quietly. She felt both respect and excitement. The mystery of the sealed door was beginning to take shape in her mind. That night, Mira lit candles in the main hall. Shadows danced on the walls, and the mansion felt alive in a way she had never imagined. She could hear the soft rustling of the wind through the trees, the creak of the old wood, and the distant sound of water dripping somewhere in the house. Everything seemed connected, as if the mansion itself was waiting for her to understand it. Mira could not sleep well. Her mind wandered back to the sealed door again and again. She imagined what could be behind it. A hidden room filled with books, a secret passage, or perhaps something more practical, like tools and furniture. The possibilities were endless, and each one made her heart beat faster. Yet she reminded herself that patience was important. The mansion had waited decades. A few days would not make a difference. The next morning, Mira explored the basement area. Most of it was empty and dark, with stone walls damp from years of cold air and moisture. She discovered a few old trunks, each filled with clothes, letters, and objects from the past. One trunk contained old photographs. Faces smiled at her from yellowed paper. Children, a mother, a father, and a dog appeared frozen in time. Mira noticed that none of the photos showed the hallway or the sealed door. That realization made her more curious. Whoever had lived here had hidden this room carefully. She continued to clean and organize. Dust and cobwebs became part of her day. Every sweep of the broom, every careful touch of her hand across old furniture, made her feel closer to the history of the house. She began to imagine the daily lives of those who had once lived there. Perhaps they had celebrated birthdays, shared meals, and laughed in the very rooms she now walked through. Perhaps they had also faced hardships that forced them to leave. Mira wanted to know the full story, but she knew that some secrets needed time to reveal themselves. By the end of the day, Mira felt tired but satisfied. She prepared a simple dinner in the kitchen and ate slowly, listening to the house around her. The mansion creaked and whispered, and the sealed door remained at the edge of her thoughts, calm and silent. Mira smiled. She knew that one day, she would learn its secret. Before going to bed, she wrote in her journal about her discoveries. The photographs, the notes, the garden, and the quiet life the house seemed to offer. She drew small sketches of the rooms and the sealed door. She imagined the stories of the people who had built this place. Writing made her feel connected to the house in a way nothing else could. That night, as she lay on the mattress in her bedroom, she felt that the mansion had accepted her. It was no longer an empty, forgotten building. It was a place with history, with secrets, and with life waiting to be discovered. Mira closed her eyes and slept with a sense of calm excitement, knowing that each day would bring new discoveries and that the story of the mansion was only beginning. Mira did not yet know what waited behind the sealed door. She only knew that it was important, and that the house had chosen her to uncover it. She felt patient, ready, and connected to the mansion in a way she had never felt anywhere else. The stone walls, the old photographs, the hidden garden, and the quiet halls all whispered the same message. The house was alive, and it had a story to tell, one that Mira was ready to hear. The morning sun poured through the tall windows of the mansion as Mira awoke with a sense of purpose. The sealed door had been on her mind all night, and today, she felt ready to face it. She spent a few hours preparing, cleaning her hands and gathering tools she might need. The mansion felt quieter than usual, as if it knew something important was about to happen. Mira approached the door slowly. The wooden bars that blocked it seemed stronger than she expected. She studied them carefully, looking for a way to remove them without causing damage. She wanted to respect the house and its history, not harm it in her curiosity. With steady hands, she used a crowbar to loosen the bars one by one. Each bar came free with a small creak, and the smell of old wood and stone rose around her. When the last bar was removed, Mira hesitated for a moment. She placed her hand on the doorknob, feeling the cold metal under her fingers. Taking a deep breath, she turned it and slowly opened the door. A faint draft of cold air escaped from within, carrying a smell of earth and dust. The hallway beyond was narrow and dark, with stone steps leading downward. Mira felt her heart beat faster with excitement and anticipation. She lit a lantern and took her first careful step into the hidden passage. The stairs led to a small underground area. The walls were made of rough stone, and the air was cool and damp. Mira noticed signs of careful construction. This was not a forgotten cellar or simple storage space. It was deliberate, hidden, and meant to be discovered only by someone who knew how to look. The floor was swept clean of debris, as if the family who built it had prepared it for this exact moment. At the end of the narrow passage, Mira found a small room. The space was modest but clearly important. In the center stood a wooden table with a heavy metal box on top. Around the walls, papers were pinned carefully, some yellowed with age, others fresher than expected. The room smelled of metal, paper, and stone. Mira felt a shiver of excitement. She had discovered something no one had seen for decades. She examined the pinned notes first. They were written in clear, careful handwriting. Some described measurements and diagrams of the mansion. Others contained instructions for maintaining the structure and protecting it from damage. Mira realized that the family who had lived here had been engineers or planners. They had discovered weaknesses in the hill beneath the mansion and had taken steps to ensure it remained standing for years. The notes spoke of precision, care, and the responsibility of protecting the house. Mira turned to the metal box. It was locked, but the key lay nearby, tied to a ribbon. She picked it up and slowly opened the box. Inside were maps, tools, and more notes. The maps showed the mansion, the surrounding land, and the hidden tunnels and structures beneath it. The tools were simple but precise, meant for checking measurements and maintaining stability. Mira realized that the family had not left behind wealth or treasure. They had left knowledge, something far more valuable and rare. As Mira studied the notes and tools, she noticed a pattern. The family had sealed this room not out of fear but out of responsibility. They had wanted to protect their discoveries from misuse. If someone untrained had found the room, they could have damaged the mansion. Mira felt respect for the people who had lived here. They had cared not only for their home but for anyone who might come after them. Hours passed as Mira examined every corner of the hidden room. She sketched diagrams in her journal, copied instructions, and carefully returned the tools to their places. The more she learned, the more she understood the mansion's strength. The stone walls, the beams, and the foundation were all part of a careful plan. The house had stood empty for decades but had not fallen because of the work of those who had built it. Mira also realized that the notes contained personal messages. The family had written about hope, patience, and the importance of understanding. One note spoke of a child who loved to draw in the mansion's garden. Another described a quiet night when the stars were bright and the wind moved through the trees. Mira felt connected to these people, even though she had never met them. Their lives were hidden but not lost. By late afternoon, Mira had carefully studied the room and its contents. She felt a sense of calm and accomplishment. The mansion was no longer a mysterious, silent place. It was alive with history and knowledge. She understood the care and attention that had gone into protecting it. The fear that the villagers had felt for decades now made sense. They had respected the family's decision to keep the room secret, and their caution had preserved the mansion for her to discover. Mira decided to rest before returning upstairs. She placed the lantern on the table, careful not to disturb anything. She looked around one last time, seeing the metal box, the notes, and the maps. The hidden room was more than a secret. It was a gift, a connection to the past, and a guide for the future. Mira felt grateful and honored. She knew that her life had changed. She was now a part of the mansion's story. As she climbed the stairs back to the main floor, Mira thought about the family who had built this secret. They had been wise, careful, and kind. They had left knowledge instead of gold, teaching patience instead of recklessness. Mira felt inspired to care for the mansion in the same way. She would not only live here. She would protect and preserve it, as the family had intended. That evening, Mira lit candles in the main hall. The mansion glowed softly in the warm light. She walked through each room, feeling the weight and the strength of the walls. The living room, the bedrooms, the kitchen, and even the garden all seemed alive in a new way. The mansion had become more than a house. It was a home, filled with history, care, and secrets waiting to guide her. As night fell, Mira stood before the sealed door again. She no longer felt fear or hesitation. She had seen what lay behind it, and she understood the importance of respect and patience. The mansion had trusted her to uncover the truth, and she had done so with care. The wooden bars, once a barrier, now seemed like a bridge between the past and her present life. Before sleeping, Mira wrote in her journal about her discoveries. She described the hidden room, the notes, the tools, and the maps. She sketched the diagrams and copied the messages of hope and patience. Writing helped her process what she had learned. It also made her feel connected to the family who had built the mansion and left its secret behind. That night, Mira felt a deep peace. The mansion no longer felt empty or abandoned. It was a place of knowledge, history, and connection. She understood that some secrets were meant to wait, and that patience and respect could reveal them safely. Mira knew that her life and the life of the mansion were now intertwined. She slept with the quiet knowledge that tomorrow would bring more discoveries, and that the mansion's story was only beginning to unfold. The following morning, Mira woke with a quiet excitement. She had explored the hidden room, studied the notes, and uncovered the family's careful work, but she felt there was more to learn. The mansion seemed to hum with energy, as if it knew she had begun to understand its secrets. She prepared her lantern and notebook, ready to explore and record everything she could find. Mira started her day in the basement. She wanted to check every corner of the house, ensuring she understood the hidden passages and tunnels mentioned in the notes. The stone walls were cool under her hands, and the air smelled faintly of earth. She carefully examined the maps she had copied from the metal box. The maps showed small rooms and tunnels beneath the mansion, some of which she had already seen. Others seemed hidden behind walls or old furniture. Mira realized the mansion had layers of history built into it, each layer waiting for someone patient enough to explore. She moved through the basement slowly, following the lines on her map. In one corner, she found a loose stone in the wall. She pressed it gently, and it shifted. Behind it was a small compartment containing another notebook. The pages were older, worn with age, and written in a hurried but careful hand. The notes described observations about the hill beneath the mansion. The family had discovered signs of small movements in the earth and had worked to strengthen the foundation. Mira read with fascination, understanding the precision and intelligence behind every step the family had taken. After several hours, Mira returned upstairs, carrying the notebook carefully. She sat by the large window in the living room and began copying the notes into her own journal. Each sentence gave her more insight into the family's dedication. They had not only built a home, but they had also designed a system to preserve it. They had thought of every possible problem, and the secret room had been their final measure to protect the mansion from harm. Mira then decided to explore the garden. The vines and wild plants had grown freely, and the old flower beds were overgrown with weeds. She walked slowly, examining broken pots and twisted branches. Despite its neglect, the garden felt alive. Birds sang from the trees, and sunlight moved across the stone paths. Mira began clearing some of the weeds, carefully moving small plants to a safe place. She imagined the garden as it once had been, full of color, life, and laughter. While working, Mira discovered small objects buried in the soil. Old toys, pieces of pottery, and a small metal key caught her attention. She cleaned them and placed them on a flat stone to examine later. Each item told a story, small fragments of the lives of the people who had once lived in the mansion. Mira realized that the mansion was full of personal history, waiting for someone to see it and respect it. When she returned inside, Mira found that the villagers had gathered outside the gates. Word of her work had spread, and some people wanted to see the mansion. Mira felt nervous but also excited. She had always wanted to share the house with others, but she was careful. She opened the main door and welcomed the villagers inside. They walked through the living room and upstairs to the bedrooms. Mira showed them the details she had discovered, the old furniture, the photographs, and the notes. The villagers listened quietly, their faces changing from curiosity to amazement. Mira explained the hidden room and the secret the family had left behind. She described the maps, the tools, and the careful planning that had kept the mansion standing for so many years. The villagers were impressed. They realized that the fear they had felt for decades was based on misunderstanding. The mansion was not cursed or dangerous. It was protected by knowledge and care. Mira felt proud and happy. She had uncovered the truth, and now others could understand and respect the house as she did. After the visitors left, Mira returned to the hidden room. She carefully examined the maps and notes again. She thought about the family who had built the mansion and left their secrets behind. She felt a strong connection to them, as if they were guiding her through time. She decided to create a system to maintain the mansion, following their methods and adding her own observations. The house had become her responsibility, and she felt ready to take care of it fully. That evening, Mira prepared a simple dinner in the kitchen. The mansion felt warm and inviting, filled with light and the quiet sounds of the old house settling. She sat by the fireplace, reviewing her notes and planning her next day. She realized that the mansion was more than a home. It was a living story, full of lessons and history, and she was now part of it. Mira thought about the future. She wanted to restore the garden completely, explore every hidden passage, and carefully preserve the secrets she had discovered. She also wanted to invite the villagers again, to show them how the mansion could be a place of learning, history, and beauty. She understood that patience and care were more important than speed. The mansion had waited decades for someone who would respect it, and now it had found Mira. Before sleeping, Mira wrote in her journal. She recorded the day's discoveries, the villagers' reactions, and her own feelings. She sketched the maps and diagrams, noting the positions of hidden compartments and the details of the garden. Writing helped her organize her thoughts and gave her a sense of connection to the mansion and the family who had left it behind. As night fell, Mira walked through the quiet halls one last time. The mansion was still, but it did not feel empty. The stone walls, the tall windows, and the creaking floors all seemed alive, holding memories and knowledge. Mira smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. She had uncovered the mansion's secrets, learned its history, and begun to protect it. The sealed room had changed everything. It had revealed the care, intelligence, and love of the family who had lived here. It had also given Mira a sense of purpose. She now understood that some secrets were meant to wait, that knowledge was more valuable than gold, and that respect and patience could unlock even the oldest mysteries. Mira felt grateful as she climbed to her bedroom. She looked out the window at the garden, imagining the flowers blooming and the paths restored. The mansion was no longer abandoned. It was alive, full of history and hope. She knew that tomorrow would bring more work, more discoveries, and more opportunities to connect with the past. That night, Mira slept peacefully. The mansion stood quiet but strong, holding its stories and secrets. Mira dreamed of the family who had built it, of the hidden room, and of the careful planning that had kept the house safe. She knew that she was now a part of this story, and she felt ready to continue the work of preserving the mansion for years to come. Mira understood something important. The mansion's power did not come from mystery or fear. It came from knowledge, care, and responsibility. The secret room had been a guide, not a trap. And with patience, respect, and attention, she could continue the legacy of the family who had created this beautiful and remarkable house. The morning sunlight filtered through the tall windows of the mansion, casting warm patterns across the stone floors. Mira woke feeling excited and determined. The secret room had already revealed so much, but she knew the mansion had more to teach her. Today, she decided to work on the garden and the exterior areas, preparing them to reflect the life and history that had once thrived here. She stepped outside and felt the fresh morning air fill her lungs. The garden was overgrown, but it had potential. Wildflowers, vines, and grass had taken over the paths, yet small buds and broken flower stems hinted at what had once been a beautiful space. Mira began clearing weeds carefully, working slowly to avoid damaging anything that might still be alive. Each plant she moved or trimmed told a story, and she imagined the family who had tended this garden decades ago. While working, Mira found a small, weathered stone with a carving on it. It looked like a simple heart, but it had been placed carefully among the weeds. She cleaned it gently and set it on a flat surface. She realized that even in neglect, the mansion carried small messages of care and love. Mira smiled, feeling a deep connection to those who had lived here before her. After hours of work, Mira paused to rest. She looked at the mansion from the garden and noticed how strong it appeared, even after decades of being empty. The walls, the windows, and the roof all held the strength built by the family who had designed it carefully. She felt proud to live in a house with such history and determination. The mansion had survived because of planning, care, and respect for its foundation. Mira understood that it was her turn to continue that care. Later, Mira returned inside. She went through each room, inspecting every corner and reviewing her notes. The hidden room remained the most fascinating, with its maps, tools, and letters. She decided to organize the maps and notes carefully, creating a system so she could maintain the mansion over time. She labeled everything, making it easy to understand the methods the family had used. As the sun began to set, Mira heard a knock at the front door. She opened it to find several villagers standing outside. They carried small baskets of food and flowers. Mira invited them inside, and they followed her through the main hall and living room. She showed them the garden, explaining the work she had done and the history she had uncovered. The villagers listened carefully, their expressions changing from curiosity to admiration. Mira showed them the hidden room, describing the maps, notes, and tools. She explained the care and planning of the family who had built the mansion. The villagers were amazed. They realized that the house was not dangerous or cursed. It had been protected by knowledge and care, waiting for someone like Mira to understand it. Mira guided the villagers to the garden, showing them the small stone she had found and explaining how even simple details could carry meaning. She spoke about the flowers, the overgrown paths, and the importance of restoring the garden carefully. The villagers offered to help. Together, they began clearing weeds, planting new flowers, and repairing broken paths. The mansion, once quiet and abandoned, slowly became a place of life and activity. As evening approached, Mira lit lanterns throughout the mansion. The warm light filled the rooms, creating shadows that danced softly on the walls. She walked through each room with the villagers, showing them the details she had discovered, the photographs, old furniture, notes, and the hidden room. Everyone felt a connection to the past, and the mansion no longer seemed like a lonely, forgotten place. After the visitors left, Mira returned to the hidden room. She carefully checked the maps and notes once more, making sure everything was in order. She thought about the family who had left these secrets. They had worked to protect the mansion and preserve its history. Mira felt proud to be the one chosen to continue their work. She realized that the mansion's story was not just about the past. It was about the future, about preserving knowledge, care, and respect for the next generations. Mira decided to create a daily routine for maintaining the mansion. She would clean, organize, and care for each room carefully, following the methods outlined in the notes. She would also continue restoring the garden, ensuring that the outdoor spaces reflected the beauty and history of the home. This work gave her a sense of purpose and fulfillment. Days turned into weeks, and Mira worked tirelessly. The garden blossomed with colorful flowers, the paths became clear and safe, and the mansion's rooms felt warm and welcoming. She added small touches of her own, placing lamps, rugs, and plants that complemented the history of the house. The mansion was no longer abandoned. It was alive with energy, filled with stories, care, and respect. The villagers began visiting more often. They brought children to explore the garden, shared meals with Mira, and listened to stories about the mansion's history. The house became a place of learning, a place where past and present met. Mira guided everyone gently, teaching them about the importance of patience, care, and respect. The hidden room became a symbol of wisdom, a reminder that knowledge is more valuable than fear. One evening, Mira stood on the top of the hill, looking at the mansion and the village below. The sun set in brilliant colors, casting warm light on the stone walls. She felt a deep sense of connection to the mansion, to the family who had built it, and to the villagers who now respected it. The mansion had given her more than a home. It had given her purpose, community, and a connection to history. As night fell, Mira lit a small candle in the hidden room. She sat beside the metal box, looking at the maps, tools, and notes. She realized that she had become part of the mansion's story, a guardian of its secrets and its history. She promised herself that she would protect the house, share its knowledge carefully, and honor the family who had built it with love and care. Mira also understood something important about life. Some doors are not meant to be opened without respect and patience. Some secrets wait for the right person to discover them. The mansion had trusted her with its story, and she had learned that trust is a responsibility, not a gift. In the weeks and months that followed, Mira continued her work. The mansion became a place of beauty, learning, and community. She preserved the hidden room carefully, keeping the maps, notes, and tools organized. She maintained the garden with love, planting flowers and caring for every detail. The villagers joined her when they could, and together they ensured the mansion remained strong, alive, and full of life. Mira felt a quiet pride in what she had accomplished. She knew that the mansion had stood for decades because of careful planning and respect, and now it would continue to stand because of her work. She had learned patience, dedication, and the importance of preserving history. The mansion had become more than stone walls and rooms. It had become a living story, and she was its keeper. On a quiet night, Mira sat in the living room by the fireplace. The mansion was peaceful, full of light, warmth, and memories. She thought about the family who had built it, the secrets they had left, and the life she had created here. The mansion had changed her life, and she had changed it in return. She felt content, knowing that she had found a home, a purpose, and a connection to the past. The hidden room, the maps, the notes, and the carefully preserved garden all told a single story. It was a story of care, patience, and respect. Mira understood that some secrets are not meant to frighten, but to guide. The mansion had waited for someone who could understand this truth. Mira was that person. As she closed her eyes that night, she felt a deep peace. The mansion stood tall and strong, holding its secrets and stories. Mira slept knowing that she had uncovered its mysteries, learned its lessons, and begun to share its wisdom with the world. The mansion was no longer abandoned. It was alive, full of life, history, and hope for the future. Mira's story had become a part of the mansion's history. She had discovered its secret, preserved its knowledge, and shared its beauty. The stone walls, the hidden rooms, and the quiet halls were no longer silent. They spoke of care, patience, and the importance of understanding the past. Mira smiled, knowing that the mansion's story would continue, stronger and more vibrant than ever. The mansion had waited for decades, and now it had found someone who would honor its history. Mira had found a home, a purpose, and a connection to something greater than herself. The abandoned stone mansion had become a place of life, knowledge, and hope, and its story would continue for generations to come.